Thank you all. So I am Kurtis Lindqvist. I'm still the CEO for a few more days. It's a bit unclear to me who of me and Jen is Doc and who is Marty McFly, but I think we can discuss that tonight maybe. But yes, I'm here to do the CEO update and also maybe a little bit of memory. So it is the 30th birthday party, and I first of all like to welcome you all to this. It's not just about me, although I like to think so. But it's also great that we have a lot of invited guests here. So I think we have, I know we have all the CEOs in LINX history here. We have quite a few of the people who were here when LINX was established 30 years ago in various roles and capacities. It's really great to have you all here as our guests for these 2 days and for these celebrations. I have been given 38 slides and 20 minutes, which is even by my standards is a little bit of a challenge. We'll see how. So if I skip some slides very quickly, then bear with me. Just a short update on the numbers and what we've been doing since May. We continue to see a lot of growth in capacity, as maybe could be expected. And peak traffic has grown quite a bit across the board as well, especially, of course, on LON 1, LON 2, but actually on all the IXs. And member numbers have been quite stagnant, but they are actually growing, which is also great. We have seen some new members join us. And we have looked at you will notice in the EGM that we have quite a few number of members who are currently suspended, who's being terminated, and the board and us looked at why this is, and it's a combination of factors that seems to have come together. One of them is, of course, the current economic climate. There is a lot of essentially bankruptcies, which of course is not great for any of us, but it's not a trend generally about LINX. It tends to be a number of factors, so it just has to become a bit of a perfect storm. Some other updates since May. We continue to see some growth in Nairobi, which is very great. I'm going to come back to that in a second. We saw a 100% increase of traffic in Nova, which we're very happy about, because that's one of the things we focused a bit on this year. We got recertified at the ISO 27000 certification. So every 3 years, you have to do a full certification, and we did that this year. I think Richard will cover this more great detail in his presentation, maybe. But we also expanded the scope I lost my screen for a second. The scope of the certification, and we also changed the standard into the current version. So that was quite a bit job than just doing a recertification. We launched MAPS private VLANs closed user groups in Nairobi. I don't know why I picked out Nairobi, but we have a long-standing ambition, and we want to have all our services at all the IXPs, so that this should be a harmonized product set across the IXPs where it makes sense. So this is one step in that. We have co-organized the first Net UK conference in July, was it? And we brought Riyadh IX live together with Center 3 in Saudi as one of the partners we have. So we've been quite busy in this time. There were a few other events that happened, nothing big. I resigned, some of you might have known, in May for... If Jen said that if she a year ago thought she'd be standing here saying that she become CEO, if someone asked me a year ago if I was to be standing here to become ICANN CEO, I probably wouldn't believe it either. But that's where we are. And of course, you named Jen, as you heard from Peter. And I'd really like to congratulate Jen on this step, and I wish her the best for the future from me. And I will have many times to say this to Jen again. Good luck. But I think Jen will be a terrific CEO, and I know she knows the community very well, and I think that'll be a fantastic future. Onwards with some of the other things. I keep showing this graph because I think it's a very valuable graph. This is the investment we have done in automation and self-service on the portal, and we keep seeing the very high usage levels on this, which is great because that's what we wanted it to do. It means that we add value and members can do the changes themselves instead of going through the NOC, and you can have instantaneous self-service, which is great. Another metric that I think we have occasionally showed you, but we have an internal target of provisioning services within 10 days from order in 80% of the cases, and we're well above within that, and sometimes we've been quite above it, as you can see. So that's also a tremendous effort by the NOC and the provisioning teams and engineering who builds and makes sure we have the capacity to fulfill the orders as you order it and expect. So this includes physical installs. As I said, we keep following the feedback, and I know there's a bit of discussion on this on the members list, but we actually take this feedback very seriously. And this is not, and if you give negative or constructive feedback, it's something we take on board. We do want to learn how we can provide our services better. And Sean, who manages the NOC and the NOC, they actually look at this. We all look at this to see the feedback. How can we actually improve? What can we do to get better from this feedback? So this feedback is actually quite valuable to us. We get very positive feedback. We get a lot of written positive comments that are very kind, and we share with the NOC, and I think that shows that they're quite appreciated. These are the 3 areas that we gather the feedback for. So NOC, but that includes provisioning. So if someone has opened a ticket with sales to buy an order, this ticket gets handed over to provisioning and NOC. So it tends to be a flow a little bit between these 3 graphs. The other one is sales, and the third one is finance. So we look at all these and why we, if there's any negative trends, why is that, and what can we do to improve? But we see very little negative feedback, so we're quite pleased about that. The next thing I wanted to touch upon was something that's been discussed a little bit over the few days. I'm not going to touch on the technical aspects. Richard will do this later in his update. I just wanted to touch on 2 things. The first question that's come up is that, what do we do when there are issues reported to us, and what's the process? So if we get a report of a MOU violation, or that we believe there's an MOU violation, and this can be from non-payment to anything else, we validate this, we look into what happened, and we actually do this ourselves. We don't just trust the report coming to us. We form an opinion, and in this case, we decided that having traffic reflected or retransmitted back into the network was harmful and not appropriate. But in any of these cases, in this particular case that happened over the weekend or since last week was reported, we identified 6 members. And we contacted 5 of these. The 6th one was unresponsive. We made the decision to shut the 6th one down as we couldn't actually reach them. And I know that some of you reached out to me after this email saying that maybe we should make sure we have contact details, and we agree with that, and we do what we can to make sure that members are responsive. But even if we ask members to verify the contact details, that doesn't mean that they're always so responsive when we ask them about other things, like payments. But 2 of these 6 members responded relatively quickly, and they took action, and we worked with them on this. 3 members continued to work with us over the weekend and resolved these problems on, I think it was Monday night. And the 6th member has now since contacted us and started working with us. So that's the process we go through when we have anything, in this particular case, sorry. In general, we have some tools available to us that we can take if there is breaches of the MOU, as I said, non-payments, Chapter 11s, etc., technical issues. And what we do and how we deal with them depends on the nature of the issue, how responsive the member is, what their presented mitigation or action are, and we then make form ourselves in a picture of this and what action we believe is necessary to take. We have a number of tools in the MOU of what we can do, and this ranges from discussing with them shutting down to membership suspension, which eventually can lead to termination. But we generally tend to work with the members depending, again, on the issue. When this gets identified, it does get escalated to the SMT, to me, and depending on the severity, it could also go to the board, although most of this is delegated to us. In this particular case, there's also a claim about the data breach. We analyzed this, and we don't believe that's the case. We don't believe this falls in that category. And that said, as I said in the email to the membership, we always believe that having clarity on these issues are important. So we will ask the ICO for guidance, or at least having a discussion with them on what they think this looks like. There's no guarantee they'll do that or they'll even engage in this issue, but we will go through that process to see if we can bring more clarity. Next, I want to talk about LINX Nairobi. As I said, we've seen quite a bit of growth. It's a year ago since we became operational. And just to give a reflection back to just over a year ago when I explained how we do these business cases, So any business case that LINX looks into, and this can be a new data center, an upgrade of a data center, tool development, new products, managed ISPs, new lands, etc. We build a business case. We generally start by, we identify it, we engage with stakeholders that we believe would be interested in this, so members who are in a particular data center, if there's portal development tools, we believe members would value, and we identify this, we build a proposition, we do the usual, you do in any business case, we calculate the cost of goods sold, SG&A included, CapEx, we calculate NPVs, IRRs, all the financial metrics, and perhaps most importantly, we ask ourselves, is this right for LINX and LINX members? This is then presented to me, then to the SMT, and depending on the sign-off and size and type, it goes to the board, can go to the board for approval. So this came up in the past, why don't we present these business cases? Some of them including new data center builds, for example. The members article have delegated the running to the board, to the company, running of the company to the board, and thereby to the executives. A lot of these opportunities are also commercially sensitive, and we wouldn't be able to engage with any of them unless this was under NDA or we kept this relatively quiet. When we do receive this member feedback, another issue that comes up is that a lot of the members don't want to share this in public, and they can't. They can be listed companies, their policies, processes, they might be sharing information with us that is sensitive to them. It could be market affecting, it could be, etc. So we can't necessarily share all the data we get from them either. We have to process this internally. And if we then think that all this come together, we believe that it still makes sense and is worth pursuing, we will, and is in line with the strategy, our purpose, and the financial metrics stacks up, we will go and do it. If it creates value for the members and has an acceptable risk associated with it, and is financially viable. This said, we turned down most of these opportunities, way more than we ever approved. Some of these opportunities have been picked up by others, and some successfully, some not. But we are very restricted in what we go and do and why, right? So with that as background, as a reminder, we come to LINX Nairobi. So we approved it in 2022. It took us almost a year to go live, not quite a year, but and this was due to a number of delays around regulation, company registrations, logistics, it was all kind of reasons. So when you build a business case, this business case, of course, outlines everything happens simultaneously, or at least in a perfect plan that you have envisaged. And then they hit reality. No strategy survives impact with reality, right? And so obviously the lining and timings might not be exactly as in the business case, but overall so far, CapEx spend is below the estimates we had. Cost of goods sold is below estimates. We have a slightly higher SG&A for the initial phase. That was because around the setup of the regulation and legal constructs. But the actual run rate is much lower than expected as well. So overall, we think this is actually going quite well. On the members joining side, a lot of the member speeds are, on the lower appearing speeds are ahead of the business case. Some of the higher ones are a bit behind. But based on the pipeline and in discussions we have with members, we believe that by 2025 we'll actually be running exactly as the business case we had approved. So we think that this has actually been quite a successful investment for us and the members that engaged in this. Further, that we announced LINX Mombasa earlier, last week, sorry. So this is building on the license we have in Nairobi and to expand it to the DRT site, to the two DCs in Mombasa. We aim to launch this operationally early 2025. This is purely based on logistics to try to get everything built and in place. It will have the same services as other IXPs as in Nairobi, and you can place orders under the portal and existing MOU as with any other LINX IXP. We also announced LINX Accra, and this was also based on member feedback, same as with Nairobi and Mombasa. And based on the success there was actually demand for both expanding to Mombasa, but also to look at the west coast of Africa, so into Accra. We're going to start initially with Onyx and Pikes, Accra is a hub for a lot of the cable landings, and there's been a lot of investments into Ghana and West Africa as a connectivity hub. So we believe we can build on these to create a successful launch in Accra as well. The next topic I want to touch upon is ESG. This is maybe a bit more of a odd topic for me to talk about, but we're increasingly getting questions from members on ESG policy statements and reporting. This is, well, we believe this is driven by existing regulation and incoming regulation. And we know that in the coming 2 years, there's further regulation coming into place, especially in the EU, that includes supply chain. And so we're starting to get some initial more and more questions on this, and we realize that to service the members, we need to have some more in place than we do today. We actually believe we are in quite a good place. We are in a very good place to deliver this. We have a lot of work done in governance. We have a lot of work done in the societal pillar. We don't report much of this, which is, of course, the sort of what we asked for about the reporting. And we haven't done very much in the environmental side. But we have contracted with will contract with an outside agency to help us develop this, and these are specialized in developing this type of reporting, as we know that we are seeing quite an increase in requests around this, so that will become available and published for you to work on. If you have any questions, you can come and ask me afterwards, but I do know that listed companies and larger companies are becoming under obligation to get this. At the same time, I'm going to go very quickly to, and this is very much internal, but we wanted to update you on this as well. LINX has or had quite a few set of values identified. We have something called staff cultural values, and we have something called LINX core values. And these are quite a few values. And we know from well, we have a document called Vision to Strategy that was published in 2013, 14, something like that, 15, I can't remember anymore. I was going through these years looking at Malcolm to see he would nod at one of the years, but anyway, he's nodding. Okay, it was one of those 3 years. There we go. Okay. And it outlines the difference between them and how we deal with them. And they identify the core and cultural values. And we believe that to make this a bit more comprehensive and maybe a little easier to deal with, that we want to try and combine this into a smaller set of values that we talk about and we work with internally and externally, and how we live with this. And just to be clear, we're not really changing any of these. We don't believe there was anything necessarily wrong in the values themselves, but we are trying to make this a bit easier to work with and slightly more comprehensive. I'm quite sure what. Oh, so we're combining them to one set of values just to make them easier to digest. This I just said actually, and easier to relate to for staff and as we work with them, and also for LINX members. So. That was a slide that was meant to be here. I'm going to skip past this. So we decided to combine this into 3 headlines. That was that we're working collaboratively with consideration, respect, accountability, and for the value of the community. And for each of these, we have, you probably can't read this, but we have created a set of storyline around each of them, what this means, and how we believe this is valuable to LINX, and how we internally use these values. LINX meetings. You're at one now, in case you didn't realize. And so we have when I first started participating in LINX, there was 4 meetings, and then we went down to 3 because you didn't want to come in August. And we are realizing that the feedback we're getting as well is that there's quite a lot of meetings, and there is other ways you engage with us. And so next year, there will only be 2 LINX meetings. Right, okay. You can resolve this at the bar tonight, okay? I'm just explaining what it is. So we're going to do this in June and November. But not only that, we're also changing venue because this floor is being turned into hotel rooms. I am not making that up, by the way. And so the new venues, that's what I have to read from my slide, because I can't. We're moving to a place with windows. That might scare some of you a little bit, but And this is 133 Houndsditch, which is just around the corner from Liverpool Street Station and Aldgate. However, just because we're going down to 2 member meetings, we are actually planning to increase the amount of member engagement. So we'll have a lot more other events and engagement opportunities that will announce shortly, and that will be gone throughout the year. But the actual LINX meetings will be 2 a year, and that will be also the AGM and the EGM, just like today. So that was my update. I already used my 20 minutes. So it's 30 years since LINX was founded. It's 8 years since I joined. It's 5 years since I became CEO. And so this is a little bit of reflection on that. There's a quote that I use often internally. It's by Jesper Brodin. He's the CEO of Inca, the holding company that owns IKEA. And he was the first non-member of the family to take over. And he was the one who had to go to the family of Kamprad and IKEA and say that, guys, I think we had the same strategy for 60 years. Maybe we need to evaluate this. And the quote he used was that love the past, create the future. And I think, and some of you might have seen me post this yesterday, but I think all membership organizations do this all the time. This is how we evolve. We love the past, but we create the future together with the members. And 30 years ago, I don't believe we have ever found a photo of the original group who set up LINX. So this is in 1995. Quite a few of you in that picture is in the room, I believe, at least some of you. And this is from the London Computer Centre in 1995. This might be the first LINX meeting, I guess, although it was before numbering. And it was set up with its two principles: to be neutral to its members and independent of any one provider, and to keep traffic local. And I think both of these is something we have still maintained to this day, something we're very hard on. And that hasn't changed, right? It's very much part of the love of the past. The first day of traffic was in Telehouse, 8th of November 1994. Philip, who is somewhere in the room, I believe, was the one who installed the switch. I can't remember if Philip actually made it work or not, but anyway. Keith posted earlier today that the first traffic pass was between JISC, Janet, and Pipex. I think it was true. Okay, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that was posted on LinkedIn earlier today. 10 years onwards, LINX have become so mature it ended up in a science museum. Which is quite remarkable after 10 years to be in the Science Museum, I think. But anyway, you can still go and see the original switch in the Science Museum, and that shows a bit of the impact LINX had on the history. We had hit 150 members then, and that's the original Catalyst 1200 switch that you can go and see still today. So I'm going to fast forward to that's a little bit the LINX past and LINX history. I'm going to fast forward to my history at LINX. So doing this, I had to go back and try to remind myself of what it was like when I joined in March 2016. So apparently I gave a presentation to the LINX meeting, and I started as the Chief Marketing Officer, and many of you didn't know me, maybe many of you did, but so I gave a very brief introduction to myself and my background. I think what's true here is probably still the one in the picture down right. I was around for a long time before that, and I had a long background in the internet. But I think joining LINX was still a fantastic experience, and I think it was really great to come here and work with the community. I mean, I've been here as a guest many times before, but to actually be part of the community. And while many of you probably wonder if I enjoy every single day as CEO, I actually do. I think it's been a fantastic experience. We love all the members. And I'm sure Jen will take this over as well, because it is actually quite a fantastic community, and it is great warmth that you receive from the membership. Not always, but most of the time. 2019, I took over from John as the CEO. And again, I had to give a new presentation, and this is where we were then. We had 84 applications, apparently. We had 838 members, so we've grown a little bit since then. We certainly have a lot more 100 gig ports, which is quite fantastic, and a lot more edge capacity. So if I reflect back on these 5 years later, I think that since I joined I started working with ISP in 94, 95. We started our own, actually, but then I joined a carrier in 1997, 1998. And it's been a quite amazing change. I mean, I was at the URX meeting at the beginning of the week, and someone asked me to make the prediction, or they had asked me to make a prediction. And I said, I've been wrong every single time I made a prediction, so maybe I should not do this, but I do think that there is a lot of future. But I do think it's also some things are changing. You know, it has evolved. This evolution might pick up pace as you go forward. But one thing I reflect about having my 30 years in the industry is that for the first time it feels a little bit like tomorrow won't look like today. I think the last 30 years, tomorrow has been a little bit like an old EIX presentation, right? You know, it's up and to the right, it's just a bit more zeros and a bit more, you know, bigger. Everything is bigger, but it's really the same, right? But for the first time, I think that maybe there are some changes. There is difference happening in the market. I think that what is not changing though is that the UK and Europe in a worldwide ecosystem is very, very strong, right? You know, the friendships and the people who we have here is very strong. I believe the people who come into the community feel that it's a very strong community. And that can be both in a negative and a positive way, by the way. I do hope we will get better, all of us, in welcoming new members into this actually quite fantastic community there. But it has been a very great opportunity to be part of this community for almost 30 years, or 29 years in my case. So thank you all for welcoming me and having me here. But I don't think I'll go that far away. Unless you don't pay your domain name, I might come back then. But otherwise, so thank you. And that was all. Shall we start with, thank you. Shall we start with if there are any questions? Because I was supposed to take questions. No? Oh, there's a question at the front.
Hi, Fergus Mackay, Flex Optics. You've got June and November as the meeting dates.
Yeah.
Is that definitely going to be the months they stick with, or?
No.
So that's just for next year?
I think it changes depending on the just like we do today. It depends on the availability of the venue. I think there is we try to keep it static. Sorry, but Jen might answer this better. Well, it is also some limitation on the dates of the GM when we can hold them, the number of days after the end of years and before the whatever. I can't remember the logistical order, but there's a span in the spring and the autumn we can hold it in, and we can't change it beyond those spans.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Oh, there's someone waving over there. Oh, Rob. I think I got a light straight in my eye. It looks like Rob in a silhouette.
Possibly a question for the new CEO, but let's get the opinion of the current one. With the recent issue raised on the list and regarding errant traffic and needing to contact the ICO and things, at what point should there be proactive investigation, monitoring and checking of what comes in and out of members' ports versus relying on a member reporting something wrong? If I'm riding on a train, I kind of expect the tracks to be properly maintained and run by the train company rather than the passengers noticing that they stop. However, I understand that there are potential regulatory issues of you suddenly having a system that can investigate into packets.
So it's a very good question, and I would probably need another 20 minutes to answer it fully, but we do check for this. Well, we do check for the hygiene on the lands in general. Now, there is a few things colliding a little bit is the level of payload inspection we can do, because under MOU we say we don't. Now, there's also a question about the sheer volume to identifying some of these issues. I am not the expert to talk about this. We can probably organize a more in-depth presentation of what we do and what we don't do at another LINX meeting. But yes, no, you're right. But we do inspect some of these traffics, and maybe I should have said this. There's a lot of actions taken by LINX NOC that we don't report to members list that we see by ourselves, right? So it's not that it's not that we only act when we see reports from members, although that helps sometimes. But we also do some hygiene monitoring ourselves. Any other questions? No? All right. Thank you.